Fort Fredrick, also known as Trincomalee Fort or Fort of Triquillimale, is a fort built by Portuguese colonials at Trincomalee, Eastern Province, Sri Lanka, completed in 1624 CE, built on Swami Rock-Konamamalai from the debris of the world-famous ancient Hindu Koneswaram temple. The temple was destroyed by the Portuguese colonial Constantino de Noronha under Phillip III, occupier of the Jaffna kingdom and Malabar country on the island. On the Konamalai Cape was also built a new village of Portuguese and Tamil people, 50 Portuguese soldiers, and inside the fort, a church named after Nossa Senhora de Guadalupe. The Fort of Triquillimale was dismantled and rebuilt by the Dutch in 1665, renamed Fort Fredrick. Background: several Hindu shrines in the Tamil country were destroyed during the occupation, particularly under Philip II, when Trincomalee became the scene of naval battles during Europe's 30 Years' War. King Adhiramana Singam of the Jaffna kingdom had resisted a call by D. Geronimo de Azevedo in 1612 to aid the latter in building a fortress in Trincomalee. The enterprise was abandoned. With the defeat of King Ankili II, all of the territory of the Kingdom of Jaffna, comprising Trincomalee and Batticaloa, was assigned to the spiritual cures of the Franciscans. Quote, "This decision was taken by the Bishop of Kochi, Fray Dom Sebastião de S. Pedro. By the end of 1619, a small Danish fleet had arrived at Trincomalee in May 1620. The Danes occupied Koneswaram Temple and began works for the fortification of the peninsula before being defeated. 1622 Destruction of Koneswaram Temple. The shrine was attacked and destroyed on April 14, 1622 CE, the Tamil New Year's Day, by the Portuguese general Constantino de Noronha. The main statue was taken out to town during their chariot procession in the festive period, during which time Portuguese soldiers entered the temple dressed as Iya priests and began robbing it. In an act of religious zeal, the temple was then levered over the edge into the sea. Fleeing priests buried some of the temple statues in the surrounding area. Temple stones and its carved pillars were used to construct Fort Fredrick to strengthen the colonists' influence over the eastern seaboard of the island against other invading European armies, including the Dutch Navy during the Dutch-Portuguese Wars. An extensive campaign of destruction of 500 Hindu shrines, the Saraswati Mahal Library and forced conversion in the Tamil country was conducted by the Portuguese upon their arrival to the island and conquest of the Jaffna kingdom. The temple had been paying protection fees of 1280 fanims a year to the Portuguese. Trincomalee witnessed several naval battles of Europe's 30 Years' War under Philip II's man Felipe de Oliveira, between 1639 to 1689 CE. The ATI Kononaka temple was built in nearby Thampalakamam to house the idols on procession that survived. The destruction of the Konisa temple is historically viewed as the biggest loot of one of the richest temples of Asia. Gold, pearls, precious stones and silks collected for more than 1,000 years were robbed within a few hours. A site plan by De Queiroz states, on the first rise to the summit of the rock was a pagoda, another at mid-ascent, and a principal one of them all at the highest eminence, visited by a concourse of Hindus from the whole of India. Quote, in his dispatch to Philip III, King of Portugal, Constantino described, "The land of the pagoda is 600 fathoms long and 80 feet at its broadest, narrowing to 30 feet. The final monument of the temple complex was destroyed 2 years later." Regarding a prophetic Tamil inscription de Noronha found at the site, he added, "When I went there to make this fort, I found engraved on the pagoda, among many other inscriptions. One that ran thus: Kulakiton has built this pagoda. 1624 to 1639. The fort that was built by the Portuguese was initially a triangular fort named the Fort of Triquillimale by the Portuguese, equipped with guns captured from a Danish fleet ship. Of triangular shape, it was of stone and mortar, with 3 bastions to the 3 angles. The more important bastion was called Santa Cruz. It was the key for the defense of the bay, and it was situated on the south side of the isthmus to directed contact with the waters of the bay. On this bastion were mounted 6 pieces of artillery. To the north extremity of the isthmus was situated the bastion of Santo Antonio. It was equipped of 5 pieces of artillery. The 2 main bastions were connected by a wall 100 pacos long, 3½ bracas high and 6 palmos thick. This wall closed the isthmus in its more narrow part. A 3rd bastion, the smallest of the 3, was situated on the north side up on the peninsula. On this bastion were mounted 3 pieces of artillery. All the artillery had been recovered by a relict of a Danish ship. Another wall of the same dimension of the previous one connected on the south side this 3rd bastion with the main bastion of Santa Cruz, while on the north side the 3rd bastion was connected with that of Santo Antonio only by a parapet of pedra and cal situated on the top of the rock cliff to the sea. The Portuguese had modified the escarpment below this wall so as to render it steeper. On the higher extremity of the peninsula a small settlement of Portuguese caçadores and indigenous was situated. In total, 20 brancos y 25 pretos. The caçadores, together with 50 Portuguese soldiers, guaranteed the garrisoning of the fortress. The soldiers resided inside of the fortress together with the captain, while the captain of the fort, that was named by the king or by the viceroy, resided in a house in the settlement of the caçadores. 18. In accordance with a map in the Livro das Plantas das Fortalezas Cidades e Povoações do Estado da India Oriental, another isolated bastion was present on the south side of the rocky promontory. In front of the 2 main bastions a ditch seems to have been present. A small native village was situated between the Portuguese fort and the bay. In the Bocaro's map are shown also 3 temples on the extreme point of the peninsula. These temples instead are not present in the map of the Livro das Plantas das Fortalezas Cidades and Povoações do Estado da India Oriental of the Library of the Paco Ducal de Vila Vicosa. The entrance of the fort seems to have been situated along the southern wall on the side of the village of Caçadores. A map of the Portuguese age, compiled by the same Constantino, our governor of Ceylon, shows the fort of Trincomalee situated on the isthmus of the peninsula. Clearly indicated in it is the village of the Caçadores situated on the peninsula beyond the fort. The same fort has triangular shape with 3 bastions. It makes part of the same collection, a greater map of the fort, entitled Planta da Fortaleza de Trinquillimale, which indicates the names of the 3 bastions, S. Cruz, S. Antonio and the small S. Tiago, with the indication Est Baluarte como do ao sitio. On the inner inside of the fort it is the name of N. Est de Guadalupe, indicating the name of the Church of Trincomalee. Constantino informs us that on the 3 bastions were mounted 16 pieces of artillery. The garrison comprised 40 soldiers and 30 caçadores. The place was judged by Dessar impregnable for being placed on high cliffs and, according with his opinion, also the Portuguese city with a few works of fortification could be rendered one of the more strong places of the entire East. 19. This is the description that Captain João Ribeiro makes to us of the Fort of Trincomalee. The fort was a triangular fortress with 3 bastions, 1 on each angle, armed with 10 iron guns. It was constructed on a hill near the Baía dos Arcos. Inside the fort was a church, 20 and a warehouse for the goods and ammunitions. A captain and 50 soldiers were of garrison. In the fortress then resided a constable, caçados, and a chaplain. The dimensions of smaller sides of the fortress were of 75 meters. The greater side measured 150 meters. 1639 present. This fort was captured by a Dutch fleet under Admiral Westerwold in 1639, and in 1665 a new fort was built here by the Dutch to defend against the advancements of the British and the French. The fort was renamed Fort Fredrick. In 1672, the year when the Dutch Republic was attacked by France, Britain, and 2 German states, the French captured Trincomalee and later they occupied Batticaloa. However, soon the French were forced to leave. Trincomalee was important for its large all-season secure harbour. In late 18th century Trincomalee traded hands once more with the French, capturing it again and later handing back to the Dutch East India Company, at the Peace of Paris in 1784. In 1795 it was taken over by the British, and remained a British garrison till 1948. During coastal artillery guns were added during the 2 World Wars. Today it remains garrisoned by a detachment of the Gajaba Regiment, Sri Lanka Army, but accessible to visitors. Arthur Wellesley, later 1st Duke of Wellington, visited whilst a colonel in the British East India Company. The bungalow he resided in is known as Wellesley Lodge, which is inside Fort Fredrick and now is the officers' mess of the 2nd Battalion of the Gajaba Regiment of the Sri Lankan Army.